Since Dragon Ball Super first aired, the show has constantly evolved and changed the lore of Dragon Ball in its entirety. Whether it's changing Goku's initial backstory with Dragon Ball Minus, whether it's changing certain bits of filler that we see in Dragon Ball Z, or if it's just even discrediting other bits of filler completely, or changing characters' appearances, introducing new characters, or even reviving old ones in certain cases. So today we're going to briefly discuss the end of Dragon Ball Z and why Super is probably going to return and continue past it. If you do like the art in the thumbnail and you'd like to commission any Dragon Ball artwork for yourselves from myself, feel free to direct message me at King Kanji on Twitter for more info and pricing. Link is in the description section below. But before anything else, please remember to leave a like on this video, comment on it, and subscribe for more theories, OVAs or episode ideas, and things to think about whilst we wait for our favourite animes to return from off air. But first off, let's look at why the show can't really continue and just pick up at the end of Z the way it is. First off, we've got far too many characters that have either been introduced or reintroduced that have become beloved members of the cast that we just really can't explain their lack of attendance at the tournament in the end of Dragon Ball Z. For starters, we've got Jocko, then we've got more obvious ones like Beerus and Whis. So for it to just suddenly go to the end of Z and them not be there, it really does leave some questions unanswered. And to be perfectly honest with you, if Super doesn't return, and we look at it the way that it is, it makes even less sense. Other reasons include Goku fighting Uub in his base form. Uub shows an amazing amount of strength and potential in that fight, and it really needs to be explained more considering how much more Goku's done since then. Are we just supposed to look at the end of Z as like a different story as the way that people do with GT, in the fact that it's got nothing to do with Dragon Ball Super, or we're just going to be arguing about the canon of the show for years to come? Hopefully not. And with Toyotaro doing the manga in his own way now, he's basically in charge of the manga at this point. He's just basically forwarding his chapters to Toriyama and saying, is this okay? Because the Moro arc has had very little to do with Toriyama in terms of story. But with Toyotaro doing things his way in the manga, are we likely to see Toei adapt Toyotaro's manga, or are we likely to see Toei do their own stuff? We do know from people like Geekdom 101, that from interviews he's had with other people that work for the company apparently, that Toei are basically afraid to carry on without Toriyama's input because they're afraid of having a repeat of Dragon Ball GT. Before we go into anything else, let's move on to why the show needs to go past the end of Z. A lot of people's biggest criticism of Dragon Ball Super has been the fact that there hasn't been enough tension. We know that the main cast survive because they're there at the end of Z. There's not really enough time to invest big stories into this time frame. That's the problem when you try and squeeze an arc in the middle of other arcs. There are characters that need to age. We can't do too much with the characters because we know what they turn into, so we can't have any major shift changes in their personalities, etc. But for other things, it's just because we need to open the door a little bit more. We need to be able to introduce more characters. Some characters need to be killed off, and we need to be able to just progress in the story. So to flash back to what I was just talking about a minute ago, Toei could, for all intents and purposes, if Toriyama, God forbid, if anything ever happens to him and they don't want to continue with Toyotaro's scripts, but of course Toei still want to keep making Dragon Ball content, which we know that they do, GT is renowned for having some fantastic ideas, but just very, very poor execution. So what Toei could do in this instance is they could actually retell an awful lot of Dragon Ball GT's ideas in Super's continuity, whilst they await further instruction from Toriyama or Toyotaro. In recent memory, we've already seen them reintroduce certain old bad guys, etc., and then sort of repackage them, as it were. They've done it with Kale, they've done it with Broly. Sure, they're part of the same character, but whatever. But we know that they're not afraid to do that. We also know that they're not afraid to damage too much stuff, the stuff that actually happens in GT. For instance, Kibito Kai. He is split up in Dragon Ball Super, but in GT he's still fused together. So no matter what way you actually do this, unless they're going to refuse randomly before the end of the show, there's no logical way, even if they removed all of the new characters and removed their power-ups, etc., there is still no way it could logically fit into GT. So with that being the case, they could reboot Baby. We know that they're not afraid to introduce new Sufurians, or Tuffles as they called in the dub, because they did it in the Universal Survival arc with Universe 2. So we could see maybe even the Sufurians of Universe 6 or something like that, take over their planet. And that's where Baby comes from in that. I actually did a previous idea for a video where I covered that. I might cover it again soon in case you missed it and update it a little bit. But that could end up being like a really cool arc or a really cool movie if they decided to do that. And then of course there's the beloved Shadow Dragons. It's a fantastic idea for a story and it should probably be retold at some point in Dragon Ball. However, if they do that, it should be a final arc because it is kind of something that summarizes and wraps up everything Dragon Ball. And then with the way that Dragon Ball Super reintroduced Android 17, a Super 17 arc, as it were in Dragon Ball GT, would even be more impactful in Dragon Ball Super. because emotionally we're more interested in what happens with Android 17, and we're also aware of the power boost he's had. So not only is he more frightening, it's actually more heart-wrenching to think what's going to happen to Android 17 in this arc. So it seems like a pretty good reason as why we should now take a look into why the show needs to recreate the end of Dragon Ball Z. Well, let's be honest, the big glaring elephant in the room with super shiny yellow hair is the fact that it's got too many new transformations introduced in Dragon Ball Super. We've had Super Saiyan God, we've had Super Saiyan Blue, we've had Super Saiyan Rage, we've had Super Saiyan Blue Evolved, we've had UI Omen, we've had UI Mastered. And then we've also had the Berserk form introduced from Kale, we've also had the green-haired version from Kefla. We've had Super Saiyan Goku Black Rose. We've had so many new transformations, it's very difficult to just kind of bypass them all, then go to the end of Z and just pretend that none of them are there anymore. We kind of need to have a little bit of backstory put into why they're not being utilized anymore, or in fact, just recreate the end of Z and put them in there in some capacity. Obviously, we've already mentioned that there are far too many characters we care about that are absent from the end of Z, so this seems like a perfect way to retell the end of Z the way it is, but just put the characters maybe out of sight. So maybe Beerus and Whis are floating above the tournament looking down on it and thinking, wow, we have really interfered more than we probably should have done in all this time. This all seems like a pretty good reason as to why we should do this. But of course, then the other glaring elephant in the room, this time with blue shiny hair, is the fact that we have older characters that have re-emerged, such as Frieza. If you watch the arc at this point in time, if you go back and watch the end of Z, you can imagine that Frieza's actually still alive, because obviously canonically, with all the content we have at the moment, Frieza is actually still out there. What he's doing, we don't know, but he is for a fact, he's out there at the moment. And then when you look on the other hand, we've also had Android 17, which since the Tournament of Power, yes, we have only got the Moro arc to look at the moment, but the Moro arc, it reintroduces him again. So it appears that Android 17 has just become part of the main cast now, which is great, but then we have to look at why Android 18 is there at the end of the tournament, but Android 17 isn't. So there are so many reasons why it would just be nice to put a couple of scenes. You could put reasons why he's not there. Maybe he's waiting for his adopted kids to get ready and get dressed and stuff, but they're taking far too long to get ready, so 17 just kind of goes, oh, just let's sit down. You know, you could do anything like that, but still, it would be nice to have a head nod toward it. So the final point I want to make in this video, which of course explains the thumbnail as well, is what the show should include in the recreation of the end of Z. So of course we've mentioned the cast and all the other storylines that they could pop in there and reasons that other characters aren't there, but the glaring thing, the main point of that final arc is to introduce Uub and to showcase Goku now as becoming a master. So if we're looking at it, it would make sense for both Goku and Uub to fight in UI Omen. It keeps it visually similar to the end of Z, and it doesn't actually not make sense. It makes sense for why Goku would take such an interest in Uub in the first place over anybody else he's actually met in Super so far, such as like Hit and Kaba and Caulifla and Kale and various other people from other universes like Jiren and Topo and everybody else. But why Uub? Why does he care about him so much? Well, it would make sense if they just give him a bit of a power boost in this instance. To be perfectly honest, before anybody discredits it and goes, no, I don't really want Uub to get it, if Master Roshi can experience UI in the manga, then Uub should be able to as well. It wouldn't make Uub overpowered, as we've already seen Jiren and Moro stomp Omen anyway. And even better, it can happily explain the sudden change in Uub's abilities and personality from going from very limited in the beginning of the fight to very capable in a very short time period. Whilst he has no knowledge of ki and energy, his inner focus from his teachings, perhaps from King Chopper as Toyotaro alludes to in one of his chapters, and then utilizing UI Omen makes him able to dodge and concentrate, land hits even if he's not overly powerful in terms of brute strength. This early showing of potential in Uub would clearly give Goku an urge to train him. We could go on for so long about all of these ideas as to why they would be a good idea to recreate the end of Z, but to be perfectly honest, I think I've covered enough reasons as to why. If any of you guys actually have your own reasons as to why they should recreate the end of Z, please leave a comment down below. If you have your own reasons as to why they shouldn't recreate the end of Z, please, again, leave comments down below, but just remember to be respectful of each other's opinions. There are no right or wrong answers in any of this. But I think I've gone on for long enough now, guys, so please remember to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, comment for more, and to suggest other things you might be interested in hearing about, and subscribe to see all the new content coming out in the coming weeks. Anyway, once again, guys, I'm King Kanji. Cheers for watching. Bye!